of episodes, we've talked about patterns, we've talked about safety, we've talked about some different techniques. Today, in part 5, we're actually going to do what most of you probably been waiting for, and that is actually putting a tool to the material to start shaping something that we can actually call a decoy. Hope you enjoy. Okay, this is our cork body. We have it cut out, we have it glued up, bottom board on, tail insert in. It's ready to start shaping. A couple things we need to do before we actually just start whacking away at this thing is we have to kind of get an idea of the landscape and the terrain features we want to bring out in the carving. I've said before that this is the head shelf. Now, what this represents is the lowest part of the decoy that the head will attach to. This is the head, and a couple things that I want to point out is a lot of mistakes I think a lot of people make is when they put their head on their decoy, they bring it all the way out to the front of the decoy like this. This does not allow for a good transition, and it leaves this big, bulky, thick, flat area. There's no way you can round this enough with this head this far out in order to make it look like a realistic decoy. So what we're going to do is we're going to just establish some guidelines about where this head's going to sit. Now what we want to do is make it to where the head is going to be sitting on this plane, but we want to set it back so that there is a good transition along this neckline down in the body, and then it curves in to the bottom here in the bottom board. Okay, so what I try to do is just kind of visualize continuation of this line right here, and just see how far it comes down into the body, and then it just will roll in something like that. So what I've done is I've set it back about this far. Now this would also be where you might want to try to decide whether you want to give your decoy a little character, set it to the right, maybe to the left. I'm going to opt for just a straight out pose. Okay, so what I've done is I've outlined on the cork, this rectangle right here represents this rectangle right here. Now obviously I have this part right here that's been cut, and you can kind of see it represented with this. So as I start rounding, I don't want to round any further in from this line right here. I want to maintain this line and round this way. Okay, there'll be a time when we do some more rounding, but it'll be after the head is attached so that we maintain a good transition from head to body so that it looks seamless. I am going to be using my work holder while I do the shaping on this. I'll do most of the shaping with a fillet knife to get the major material removed, followed by rasp and then a sanding block or sanding stick in order to smooth it out. This is the plate that I made to go on the vise. Just if you want to make one of these at home, just a word of advice: if you use a trailer hitch ball like this, these are fine threads. Okay, so you'll need to get nuts like this that are fine thread available at fastener stores like Fastenal, places like that. But just a normal nut will not fit on there. Now what I did is I took a simple piece of flat steel, welded this on there, and I just randomly drilled some holes. Now you may have also remembered from one of my previous segments of this series was I say that I tend to attach my bottom plate on at I don't use all 4 screws. That's a little bit of an overkill. So what I normally do is I use these 2 holes or these 2 holes and align it along the center line so that the holes are covered by a keel if I decide to put a keel on it. Another thing I put on the bottom of my decoys is a name tag, and I brand the bottom with my brand. And on this one I'll also use a leather loop attachment, so the leather loop will go here, this will go here, the bottle opener here, and then making sure I have room for my brand, which it all fits in there nicely, so I can scoot some of these up just a little bit, put the bottle opener in there, and there's room for all of them. Just want to be aware of where things are going to go before I start drilling holes. Remember, always use the largest tool that you have to do the job. There's an area here where I've already done that I didn't show on camera. I was basically just experimenting with the process. But what I'll do is instead of showing the entire process of taking material off 1/64 of an inch at a time, I'll just highlight the key areas where I'm making a particular important cut. Taking care not to violate the area that I've marked out that's going to represent where my head is going to actually sit. I've cut away already the lines that represent the side pockets, but since I have my reference on the bottom board that will never go away, I'm in good shape. You can see here is even the top representation of that line, and it's going to start going away as well, but that's not a problem. At this point, we're just looking to start establishing that flattened football look. I'm going to start rounding down here in the front, and once again, making sure that I do not go past the forward leading edge of my head. I can go ahead and start taking this down because this part is going to be recessed anyway, but just got to be careful that I don't get too far back in here, because I do want the head to sit lower than the surrounding shoulders, where it's going to look like it's kind of hunched up. Periodically, I'll go back in and re-establish this center line just so that I have a good reference. I also found that just working on one area of the duck until you either think you have it all the way like you want it, or in many cases you find you've gone too far, I like to move around. It kind of gives me a feel for the overall bird and how it's going to look overall, rather than just work on the breast and go, okay, now I'm going to move to the tail. Some people may disagree with that, but and have different techniques, but that's okay. Eventually, we're also going to have to come in with a rasp and round the tail insert, but right now we'll wait and do that last. Not saying that's how I always do it or that's the way it should be done, but that's just the way this one's going to happen in particular. I'm going to loosen the vise up, change the position. So I can work on the other side. Turned it over. I'm going to work on the bottom a little bit so I can keep establishing the roundness in through here. First, I'm going to take a little bit of a high spot off there and just kind of as you can see from this particular, probably see from this shot right here, this is where it's helpful that I already established the contour of the bottom board, and rather than having that board come all the way out flush with this side, because then I'd have to be carving something relatively hard, the wood, against something relatively soft, the cork. I'm going to stop here in just a little bit, hit the fillet knife on the sharpening steel just to kind of hone it just a little bit. And as you can tell, it's not cutting too well right now, but that's also partially because I'm cutting into that Gorilla Glue, which it can be kind of surly. That's all the work I'm going to do on this decoy with the fillet knife at this point. Total time, probably about a little over 20 minutes. Here's how the tail, under the tail, kind of is shaping up. Obviously I have some more work to do, but I'm through using the fillet knife and I'm going to move on to using the rasp. But I do want to show you that you can start to see that there are really no flat areas here. Now those side pockets will come in and make some indentions in through here, but if, you know, other than the top and some other work to do, especially around the head area, that's basically huntable right there. So we're going on to the rasp.